Productive Pastor 38, Appreciative Inquiry and Adaptive Change. What's going on, friends? Chad's here, back with the podcast. A couple days after Christmas. Let me ask you this. Are you full of Christmas cookies yet? You know, you're either really sick of them or you've ate them all and you're wishing there were more in your house. I will let you guess which bucket I am in right now. But it's the last episode of the year, finishing up this short series on leading in strange times, where we've been talking about technical challenges and adaptive challenges. First episode 36, kind of came in, introduced the subject. We lived in theory land a little bit. Last episode talked about technical versus adaptive challenge, kind of dug deep into the work of Alan Roxburgh and Mark Lau Branson. In this episode, we're moving, solid out of theory land into action land, hardcore. We're going to talk about appreciative inquiry and what does it mean to walk through adaptive change, adaptive challenge, all that, using the 4 steps for appreciative inquiry. I also have a fantastic, fun, free resource for you. You can get it at the show notes, revchadbrooks.com/PPP/038. I'll talk more about that later on, but it's just a quick 3-page PDF that helps you process your own personal change, adaptive challenges personally, as you learn this practice so you can then lead it with others. This is stuff that's I dug deep into in 2021, was just life-changing for me, and I've got some stuff there for you. So make sure you go to the show notes, revchadbrooks.com/PPP/038. Grab that free download, get that. But let's get into the main part of the content today. So the first thing is this. What is appreciative inquiry? At its most basic idea, appreciative inquiry is a method where we focus on what is positive. We focus on what is inside of us. We focus on our strengths, and we come together in a sense of curiosity to understand a way forward based off of the health, the fruit, the success, all the adjectives of the past. I was first introduced to appreciative inquiry several years ago during my coaching certification with Passion and Partnership. And what's so funny is, and I'd been working with a PIP coach for years as a church planner before that, and I'm learning this method, and I'm sitting here and realizing, oh my goodness, this has been just the conversation pathway I've been having with my friend Steve James for years as we just work through all of the difficulties and the things that come with planting new congregations. And so I fell into it deep. I loved it. It was an idea. There's just so much of it because it honors the person. There's a place for conversation, for discovery. It's the belief that, what you really, really need is not something new and frightening you have to figure out, but it's already inside of you. And so I fell in love with the model. And then when I was trained to use it with other folks, it became just even more important at that point in time. And what I love, and I shared so much of this whole 3-part mini-series has been about how I've learned to process through, being a strategic person, being a futurist, all of those sorts of things, activator, maximizer, all of that inside of Clifton Strengths. How do I balance that with listening and allowing God to lead, and also realizing that God is already doing things both in our lives and our congregations, also in our communities? And how do we and this is to use Alan Roxburgh's language, to join with God in what's going on? And it gives a way for you to breathe and to rest. Then also the plan comes where you do strategize and you think and you dream and you do and you act and you maximize all the things I've learned. And so in some ways it taught me to slow down, and then it gave me the right time where I needed to hustle up. So let's put it that way. So that's what appreciative inquiry is. I talk more about it inside of the download, or I'll be honest with you, I've been playing with this tool a lot. Just go to ChatGPT and ask it what appreciative inquiry is. I'm starting with sidebar here, rabbit trail. About a month ago, everybody was up in arms about ChatGPT, and what I'm seeing now is it's like our super responsive Wikipedia. It's generic. It's a little bland, but I had a lot of fun playing around, asking it about these things that we're talking about today, and I'm not using the content, not reading from ChatGPT to you at all, but just letting it see and just playing with that. So, sidebar, back on the rabbit trail. And so this is where we're going to kind of deviate a little bit from appreciative inquiry in a way I find this helpful, especially in these disorienting moments, in these strange times, is this. Because appreciative inquiry is all about staying in the positive and, in my mind, being very, very objective. But I do think when we use it as a pathway to change, and that's what I want to be super specific about today, is what does it look like to use appreciative inquiry as a pathway to change? I think that you get an anxiety list. And when I think about that, what I mean is, if you're doing this work personally, which I would say learn to do this personally on your own first before you try leading with somebody else, or find a practitioner who specializes in leading group work with appreciative inquiry. I do workshops with this at churches all the time. So you find somebody, but there's something about learning this personally, which I love, 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 love. But you get an anxiety list. And so pull out a piece of paper, get something in your journals going on, that sort of a thing. And this is why I think the anxiety list is all right. You're getting to do the tough work of honoring struggle without going to prescriptive solutions. So instead of, hitting the 5 ways your church can do this, or, 3 ways your preaching can be better, that sort of stuff, like list what the things that you feel like are anxious. Remember, adaptive challenges are those that are murky. There doesn't seem to be clear pathways forward, that sort of thing. And so you get an anxiety list. Think about this. What are you anxious about, or what are y'all anxious about? What are the questions you have where you feel like you can't simply seem to find any answers to? That sort of thing. List out the stuff that worries you, the things that hey, we're going to have to get a hold of this or a handle of this, or you might have to, as you're kind of thinking about your own work and leadership strategy of the year. And it kind of comes down to this, and I realize this is one of the things I'm most thankful for thinking through as a mental model in 2022 is the difference between control and agency. When you're controlled by things, that means external forces are making decisions for you and are carving the road out. When you're choosing to act in your agency, you're being honest and real about the things that you do have a say in, that you have control over, and that you can carve the path forward through it. Now, I've found out that a lot of times control and agency really is a psychological thing. It's about our own responsiveness and the ways that we react to things. And so, to trim out, to filter your anxiety list, go through that, make that, but then circle the ones that you can respond to with your agency. If it's something that you have absolutely no control over, I wouldn't start there. That's an adaptive challenge that's going to, you're going to have to put some layers on the road before you can deal with that. But this is it. This is kind of the trick to getting to those sort of things. Focus smaller and smaller until you get to a point of agency. I've shared before about Toyota's practice of the 5 whys, of asking, okay, why is this a challenge? And then you can answer that. Then why is this a challenge? Why? And I find that if you can do whys about 5 times, then you can actually get to something to begin thinking about. Just why is a 1-word fantastic question. Questions are all where appreciative inquiry lies into. Why? Why? So let's get into some appreciative practices, and I'm going to walk you through the 4 Ds of appreciative inquiry and what those looks like. But in appreciative inquiry, there's 4 steps. There's 4 points on the path, however you want to call it. But it's discover, dream, design, and destiny. And these are not necessarily this is a linear pathway. And if you're a person who just wants to get things done and you're tempted to jump straight into design, that's taking a prescriptive approach to this sort of a thing. That is trying to live with treat an adaptive challenge with a technical solution. Some folks have to hold their horses to discover and dream well. And so just a challenge, if you're a rusher and I'm a rusher, just chill out for a little bit. Just be cool and think through these sorts of things. So let's talk about discovery first. Where have you experienced fruit in the last few years? And some of this stuff we talked about in the last episode a little bit. We kind of did a mini discover session there, but think about this. Where have you experienced fruit in the last year? You can think more about this long terms, was this a natural thing or was it unintentional? And sometimes our unintentional fruit means that we're really good at something, or we're strong in something, or we're healthy in a way that we don't realize how strong we actually are. So think about that. Where have you experienced fruit in the last few years? What is your strongest story that you have? Like if you have to tell somebody, hey, let me tell you what happened to in 2022. What is your strongest story? What is that thing that you want to brag about, that you want to report about, that sort of a thing? What do you know to currently be true? In some ways, just that question, what do you know to be true? And I've done a live stream on that question. I've talked about that question all of the time. That's a way for us to state our anxieties in an objective way. That's the thing. We need to stay positive. We need to stay objective. And I've learned this in my own life is because I've found out that the negative space often isn't that true. Objectivity allows us to state a challenge without being negative, because negativity and all the things that are accompanying it, that they distort the truth. And so find a way to always be objective, to be positive in these things that are challenges, even if you know them to currently be true. Because it's important. This is about staying true to yourself. If anything, discovery is not about finding new possibilities. It's about a growing sense of either personal or organizational awareness of who you or who y'all are. There's a temptation to become inauthentic when we become negative. And this is just dangerous territory. So just think about this. What are the things to celebrate? Where have you experienced fruit? What are the stories that you would tell or that people would tell? And then what do you currently know to be true? So I love Discover Time. This is a fantastic ways that you can get staff or leadership around a table, around a meal. You can do this sort of thing really, really well. It also I've found out it increases morale. And that's a thing that's just really important right now anyway. So the second stage is this. It's dream. Ask yourself this question. What do you need to be realistic about? Those deep questions, those whys that we talked about earlier, how are those in relationship? One of the things, kind of an amendment to the question or a growth of the question, what do I know to be true, is this maybe is based off what I know to be true. Think of some statements you can make there. How might you learn from your core memories to envision a new future? I've been in a conversation with somebody on Twitter lately about something that I knew to be on just the forefront of my mind 7, 8, 9 years ago, and I can see now. And it was a core function. It was a core question. It was a core part of what was going on, and I could see where we drifted away from that. And I can see some of the frustration that happened inside of that drifting. And so think back to your core memories, to your core action points in the past that come up in discovery. Think about how that might envision a new future. And this doesn't mean just replicating, but this is a space for conversation. One of the things about appreciative inquiry is, especially in this dreaming and designing mode, it's a chance for everyone's voices to be heard. If you're in a leadership situation and you struggle because it seems to always be one or two voices that are louder than everyone else, appreciative inquiry is a fantastic model to work through with people because there are ways that every single person can get a voice at the table. And what you might find out is inside of those core memories, like I was working with a church about a month and a half ago on just some vision clarity, and we brought up how a previous generation 50 years ago loved all of these things that they were doing with their kids and with the other folks their age back when they were in their 20s and their early 30s, and those folks now are in their 80s. And we had people that were that younger age in the room, and we began to have a fantastic conversation of, okay, they were not going to do the exact same sorts of things, but what was the value that was being created inside of those? And we ended up having a great, great dream session off what that is. So think about, what are your core memories and how can you use those to envision a new future? Think about this. How might your church or you continue in your unique fruitfulness? So these things that happened that were either natural or unintentional, or it might have been as a result of some hard work, but people loved it. That's your unique fruitfulness. That's why prescriptive answers, technical solutions, just following a 5-point strategy that's a cookie cutter approach, it does not work when we're in adaptive challenges. But we find truth, we find clarity through the murkiness when we realize what is already going on that should be celebrated and should be thought about more. So that's what dream is. Now, if you're the kind of person who wants to get down to business, this is where we start doing this. The design phase. This is my favorite, but this is where if I don't tell myself to chill out, I will automatically go to. Okay, this is action land here. So a revision of Chad's favorite question now is, what would it take to be true? Remember, this is about agency. This is about the things that you can do. This is about saying this is what God is already doing. This is about saying these are the skills that we have. These are the passions that we have. This is what we have that no one else really seems to have. This is your agency. And what I love, and I talk about Daniel M's book, No Silver Bullets, all of the time. But this is what we're doing in the design phase. We are simply creating after effects. That's what I found the best way is to approach it. We're finding patterns and practices that you or your congregation wants to embody. That if these things are truly embodied, truly practiced, truly done, then the after effect will be something that relieves these pressure points and leads you into a new place. That's how we're descriptive, not prescriptive. So think about that. What kind of after effects can be creative? And this is where it's helpful sometimes to bring in a strategist to help think through these things. But a healthy strategist in this realm will also keep you just steered clear of just a prescriptive solution that somebody else does in this. This is also a phase of iteration. And, in churches, iteration's a weird thing because we want to see something work the first time we do it. And if it doesn't work, we're going to absolutely stay away from it. But iteration is refinement. That if you've created a handful of after effects, you come in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, and you're asking questions, okay, what is causing fruit? Okay, why is this causing fruit? Or it might not be. And you have to ask yourself the question, why not? Keep asking why, keep staying positive, keep staying objective, but give yourself time for these things to be embodied practices. You also might want to ask the question, what's causing friction? Like if something is simply not working, then ask why. And what oftentimes I've found is it's the application, not the idea. That there's something about the application that's causing friction. And generally it means that you're not listening to your context in your community. And so it's like, hey, we need to get a discipleship thing started. And if you only try Sunday morning fails, and you scrap the whole thing, maybe the solution is to rethink it being on Sunday morning. So kind of a quick version of it. What causes friction? But remember that the design phase, it's iteration and refinement. It's just over and over and over. And that's the thing. That's why just boiling stuff down, asking why a bunch, and realizing these after effects are small. And at the inset, things that have the greatest amount of impact with the least amount of resistance and friction will typically be the strongest ones. And so that's your design phase. The last phase is this. It's destiny. I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. Just the word sounds a little bit too hippy-dippy for me. Like I don't get so much excited about destiny, but I think destiny is also important because it's the stage to where you're asking yourself the question, how do we know when we have reached this? What does the future look like in the present? Maybe our final version of Chad's favorite question is, what do we now know to be true? Is the anxious point that was originally declared 6 months ago, 12 months ago from this, is that no longer true? But is there a new reality that happens to be true? But destiny also gives a moment to reset, a way to say, okay, we know what it's like now to move forward. We know what it's like to deal with adaptive challenges, to see through the murkiness, to find clarity, to carve new paths forward. It's also a moment to relax, to say, we get to enjoy health for a moment and to be aware of just kind of hitting pause on some sort of just cycle that's been a lot of work, but then it's also the time to begin revising and revisioning. Because you know how to do this now. It's a way to say, okay, wow, let's celebrate what we've done. Now, what do we need to apply the same system, the same processes, the same idea, and re-entering into that a season of discovery of what is going on now. What do we need? What can we be doing? What God might be asking us to do? All of those sorts of things. So I encourage you, if you found this helpful, first go grab that free download at the show notes, revchadbrooks.com/PPP/038. I think that's the one that we're on now. Yeah, 038. But learn this first yourself. And I'll be honest with you. I share a story a little bit inside of that document about how I realized I was doing some of this stuff personally before I realized I was doing it, and what that adaptation means, because I believe in this kind of almost more than anything else. One of the wildest stories of faithfulness that I can tell over the last few years was like an absolute, hilarious, amazing miracle. But it wasn't like something appearing magically out of thin air. It was finding it already inside of the congregation. I'll be honest with you, that gave a much stronger story than anything else. And so, last episode of the year, you'll be grabbing this on December 29th. Thank you for an awesome year. The podcast has come back. We jumped back into this thing last spring. It's fantastic facilitating this with you. So if you do anything at the end of this, go grab that download. But come hang out in the Productive Pastor community on Facebook. Just a group of over 1,000 pastors that talk about, what does work look like in ministry? What does productivity look like in ministry? What does it mean for us to be more focused? We share tips, tricks, hacks, all that kind of stuff in there. But I encourage you to come over to that. But thanks so much for being part of this community. I hope you have a fantastic New Year's. We'll be back. Still thinking what January is going to look like. Got some wild ideas up my sleeve. Not sure if it's going to happen or not yet, but you never know. But come hang out with us in the Productive Pastor community on Facebook. But until then, thanks for giving us this space in your ears today, but also all year long. We'll see you in the next episode.